Hello, everybody. Welcome to tonight's episode of Ramblemancy. It is good to see everybody out there. First of all, welcome to our guest, Rachel or Ray.
Hello.
Welcome. Good to see
I know
you.
the double name thing is confusing. I'm sorry.
You know, it's totally fine. Um, tonight we will be having a fun chat about one that's actually been on our list of topics for a while, which is creating and connecting through live stream and video. A topic that we've had on here at least since the pandemic started, but probably before that, because it's very, very relevant to today. But before we get started, I do have a couple of things just to run through. First of all, as usual, earlier today, the latest episode of Infinite Horizon, our Cypher System sci-fi superheroes actual play, is available to watch on YouTube. So, if you missed it and are not a big fan of the way that Twitch organizes its VODs, I don't blame you. You can go over and check out YouTube. You can now do that. Of course, we did not have an episode of In Too Deep, our Waterdeep Dragon Heist actual play, this week. But we are hopeful that things will clear up with the weather in the south enough that this week the players will be able to join us. But we are playing that by ear. We want to prioritize their well-being and safety, so we want to make sure that that is good before we come back. So keep an eye on socials and on Discord. We will keep you up to date on that. I think that's almost that's everything, isn't it? That's pretty much everything. I'm still like every time we only have a couple of things, I still feel like, oh, there's got to be more, right?
We just did such an insane amount of things last year that we have completely forgotten what it's like to not be like just crushed under the weight of all of the projects we've taken on.
It's so true. But yeah, otherwise, I think that's everything. I think we're good to go. So before we get started, I just want to say hello, Geekouts. Welcome. I also saw Rose out there in the chat. Hello, all of you. And to those of you who are in the chat who have not yet entered or said anything in the chat, welcome to you as well. We love our lurkers, always.
And anyone who happens to be on VOD Squad, we love you too.
Yes, absolutely.
Looking at you, Lemon.
Looking at you, Lemon.
John Numa sometimes.
Yeah. All right, so we will start the way that we always do, by me throwing John under the bus. John, what do you got?
How do I forget every time?
I don't know. I truly don't know. It's one of the great joys of throwing you under the bus in this situation is that you never see it coming somehow.
I also forgot too.
I am
Did I forget
magic.
to do something? Everyone's panicking.
No, you're good. This is just how we start. I always just
Great.
toss John under the bus and make him get us started.
Nice.
Yeah. So drink for John being thrown under the bus, and have your glasses ready for when John talks about being a teacher tonight,
Yeah.
inevitably, because it's
yeah.
going to happen.
Oh, yeah. Also, hello, Koala.
I suppose
Good
you
to
can
see
count that as. Suppose you can count that as one if you really want to.
I guess.
No, so like again, tonight's topic, we're talking about creating content and like the medium of like creating video content specifically. So like, you know, I assume that the conversation this evening will probably take an interesting course because there's lots of different ways that you can do that. And I think honestly, one of the things we were talking about before the show is kind of an interesting place to start, which is like that kind of interesting place that live streamed actual play shows kind of sit in the Twitch sphere, because they were like in general, like I feel like they're kind of one of the least interactive forms of live streamed media, and yet Twitch is kind of where those exist really heavily. It's that and like podcast formats, and then I feel like there's a little bit, you know, of stuff that most things I feel like find their way to YouTube. But so yeah, I don't know if we can. I don't know if I have a question there, but like I thought that was an interesting thing that we got onto before the stream started.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I that's a good point. So Ray, before we started, you were talking about you were kind of talking about how like you kind of feel like it's a bit of a weird sort of situation in the in the
Yeah.
Twitch sphere, because like you
Yeah.
don't really, it's one of the places where you have the least amount of that interaction. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I feel like it's kind of an outlier in that sense. It's like the one kind of content on Twitch that isn't designed around interaction, like live interaction. There can
Right.
still be interaction with your community, but I've always found that it kind of sits in kind of an odd spot. Like I always, whenever I consume TTRPG content, I always consume it on YouTube, just because I can watch it at my own pace and at my own, like, typically my driving force to watch a Twitch stream is to interact with the people. That is the, like, I remember when I found out that like my favorite YouTubers were on Twitch, and I was like, I can talk to them live. Like that blew my mind that was a thing I could do. And for me, that's why I that's the kind of content I gravitate towards on Twitch. And so TTRPG is we were talking about this earlier, that like interacting with chat or even looking at chat can like super take you out of that headspace. But it is also special in its own way. It's like you're watching in on like a live home game. Like it has that kind of, so there is definitely value in it. It's just a different value, and I haven't quite put my finger on what that is, but it's super interesting that it is so successful like that. It's awesome because I love Twitch and I love TTRPGs, and I love that they've kind of commingled like that, but I still haven't quite understood it, because like even when I was first getting into watching TTRPGs, I would always do YouTube, and I was always like, people watch that live? I don't get it. And I'm starting to get it more now, but for me that's always been it's always just a weird, it's just kind of a weird phenomenon to me, honestly.
It's interesting what you said about Twitch, because like that's one of the things that kind of originally drew us to the platform, right? Which is that like for like early on, because like I was kind of, I got into YouTube and YouTubers and stuff like that back in like 2010 2011ish,
Yeah.
when I really kind of got into like watching specific YouTubers, not just watching certain videos.
Yeah.
And making like when I first like learned about Twitch, I kind of bounced off of it at first because I didn't fully understand it, right?
Yeah.
Because like you're looking at it and I was like, oh, this person's playing Borderlands. Let me go see, like, because I like Borderlands. And you're watching, and like sometimes they're pretty bad at it, and it's kind of like, as you got this sort of like frustration of like, I know, right? But then I realized later exactly what you said, which is that the primary draw of Twitch is actually like where the real value, I think, is in that live, in the moment interaction.
Yeah.
Where you get that immediate feedback of like connection. And that's when I started giving Twitch a second look. So I think that's really interesting that you brought that up, because I'm this exact same way.
Yeah. Geek Outs brought up a good point, which was here to hang out with chat in TTRPG live streams. Like if you're really invested in a campaign, and being able to live talk with other people about that is like super important, and I totally get that. It's just different, like typically it's you're there for the content creator, and then the Twitch chat is like also there, but it's kind of flipped. With TTRPGs, like the main thing you're interacting with is chat, which is not typically the thing unless you're watching like professional gamers who are just like playing a game, or speedrunners, or someone who's very focused. Just kind of cool. It's just interesting.
Like, and even I watch, there's one speedrunner in particular, because I am a huge Super Metroid nerd. It was the first video game that I've played, and I've never gotten over it. But there's a Super Metroid speedrunner that I'll watch sometimes, and it's interesting to watch him interacting with chat, because he will manage somehow to read almost every single chat message when he has like hundreds of viewers, and also be doing the speed run and be like, oh yeah, this might be this might be maybe our best like sprint on this run, and I'm just like, what? How do you do this, Oates? Like,
the idea of that, just thinking about that, about trying to keep up with chat like that, just takes like it is murder on my ADHD brain. Like just the idea of it is. Ooh.
It's
Super Metroid some mental. It is some gymnastics for sure.
Yeah, well, it's a skill, and that's what we learned like pretty early on, even with this show, with Ramblemancy, that it's a skill to be able to, like any other, that it requires practice to be able to focus on what you're doing, but also watch and engage with chat. Like that's that it is sort of its own thing. Like I have done, because Ray, you do sort of some solo streaming now on your own channel, and like that's something that I have a great admiration for, because I've attempted solo streaming, and it is exhausting. Like for me
Oh yeah.
personally, it's
Oh yeah.
so exhausting, because I'm
Yeah.
concentrating here, and I'm concentrating on doing both with like chat and gaming equally well, or at least some balance. Like that's something that I
Yeah.
truly find, like how does that impact your ability to engage?
Ooh, my ADHD streaming brain manifests in not playing a game and just talking. That's where we end up. Is I just end up talking.
Yeah.
It's interesting because even on the company channel that I manage, I do both group streaming with my coworkers and by myself. So I have the exact same audience in both streams. And whoo boy, I am so much more tired after a solo stream, just
Yeah.
because like there's no one else who has their eyes on chat, and you're kind of sharing that burden a little bit, and also just like having someone to riff off of is really helpful. So yeah, solo streaming, I mean, that's how I started. So I kind of just threw myself in the deep end, and my ability to talk to myself is unparalleled. um, but yeah, I ultimately, when you're solo streaming, I feel like there is a bit of a balancing act, and the game itself is typically what I sacrifice for either
Right.
telling a story by myself or talking to chat. And that's kind of become its own in-joke in my community, is that like the game will happen when the game happens, and you got to just deal with that. But definitely people who prioritize gameplay, one of those other things tends to suffer. So it kind of just, at least that's my experience watching streams. Either someone's really focused on the game and talking about like by themselves, or the game and chat, or chat and themselves. And it's just kind of depends on what your priority is with streaming, what you're aiming to do,
Right.
and they're all equally valid. I just like the talking options.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a skill you have to hone, because it's weird
Yeah.
at first. It's definitely weird, and it's definitely taxing, especially by yourself.
Yeah. And it's like, it's one of the reasons why, like, initially I remember thinking, like, is it weird that we have this like 3 hosts and 1 guest on Ramblemancy? But like the more we've gone on with it, the more I realize like that's kind of necessary, at least for us, because I feel like, I mean, I don't want to speak for either of you guys, but like for me at least, I know if it's just me, if like as much as I like being kind of, I don't know if anybody of you have picked up on this, but I like being in the spotlight.
What? No way.
I don't know if anybody has picked up on this during any countless number of hours of streaming.
No.
But at the same
Just
time, I also get tired very quickly.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, it's an energy
especially-
expenditure.
Exactly.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, you like the type of streaming I do is like I do 2 hours where it's short, and I do a lot of engaging, and then I'm out. Like I don't get how anyone is super on and like the level of talking that like I do and does that for 8 hours. Like I have no like I would just shut down.
One of the Path of Exile streamers I used to watch would basically like get up and stream for like 6-7 hours. Like he would get up at like 6 in the morning, stream for like 6-7 hours, and then take a nap and go about the rest of his day. And I'm like, how do you do that?
So how do you go directly from streaming to napping? I don't know if anyone else experiences stream brain. At least I do, where like after I stream, it takes me at least an hour and a half to wind down from that kind of hyper aware mode that I'm in, especially after a solo stream. Ugh.
Yeah.
I've had to like change my sleep schedule to account for like I need this hour and a half buffer before I will actually power down all the way from being like super on to being completely off.
I definitely experienced that more with TTRPGs, and usually it's from the rush of like hey, we got through this really cool plot point and everybody's really excited, or I get very excited that my players did something awesome or whatever, and then like I have to wind down afterwards. When it comes to like not always Ramblemancy, but because usually I'm like so jazzed about the conversation that we had that I'm just like, I'm stimulated, I'm ready to go.
Well, you want to keep the conversation going.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But like but definitely I have that I understand what you mean, because like while my brain often is just like, okay, we need to stop, we need to shut down, and I just need to dissociate for a little while, but I couldn't imagine going straight to bed, right? Like that my brain is too active, even though it needs to just be not focusing on anything. So like
Well, yeah, especially like after a heavy combat session too. It's your brain is going a million miles per hour. You need to like unwind a little bit you can't just go. You're wired.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't just sleep.
Yeah.
Well,
Absolutely.
I mean, I can't personally. We can't, but there are folks who can.
Apparently, yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's just they've trained themselves or whatever, or they're just built that way, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I also
Time to
say,
power down.
looking at chat, I saw this was interesting. Mr. Fizzer, hello, by the way, says, I think the pandemic has smoothed the line between regular interaction and Twitch streams with with the primarily online social mode we've been working with. And that's a really good point. I think that makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense. I was actually talking with one of my friends, with Caitlin recently, and we were talking about how um, like people's people's brains are literally changing over the course of the pandemic to account for most of our interaction being like this, which can manifest itself in people having genuine emotional reactions to things like TV shows, right? Like, and not to say that they weren't doing that before,
Oh
but it's
yeah.
like amplified because now even our interpersonal actual like interpersonal relationships are happening
Yeah.
like this through a screen, and like our
That's so
brains are not
interesting.
designed to differentiate between one form of interaction and another in the same medium, right? Like it's our brains are not designed to differentiate, well, really to do any of this at all, right? Like we didn't
Mhm.
evolve with technology and screens and stuff like that, but but differentiating talking with somebody over a Zoom call and from watching a TV show where you get emotionally invested in the characters, our brains have trouble with that. And yeah,
So,
I had
oh, go ahead.
I was just saying I'd never thought about that before, but that's
yeah,
blowing my mind. That makes a ton of sense.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, and like this is an interesting point, but like I moved a few weeks ago, and after I moved, I went and picked up a care package from a friend who lives in town, and this is a friend that like I've known mostly like online before now, and I went over to their house, and something felt like it was almost imperceptible while I was there, and then I went home, and then hours later I realized it's because I made eye contact with her, and she made eye contact with me, because I'm so used to everybody that I am talking to looking right here or like right here or right here, because everyone's looking at my face on the screen, which for them is eye contact and for me is eye contact. But we're all looking at somebody's face on the screen and not looking like at the camera,
Ah.
which is like
Yeah.
the
Right.
yeah.
Oh
Oh yeah,
no.
that.
So again, it wasn't like jarring or like groundbreaking or anything, but it's just something that I noticed that I had gradually become accustomed to is not having direct eye contact in most of my interactions.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That's
Wow.
wild. I hadn't thought about that before.
I know.
Um,
It's
Definitely one of the weird things that I experienced like during the pandemic transition was watching like honestly for me the transition to all of my friendships like being online was I was already kind of there.
hmm
Like
Mhm.
yeah.
I at the time I was in my senior year in college and people were getting busy and like a lot of my friends were online. I'd had like substantial online friendships for years at that point, and watching like my ability to cope with the pandemic versus like my sister who's a decade older and like has no online
Right.
contact with anyone, watching her like really struggle with that was very interesting versus like I was already kind of I know how to connect with people online. I had that skill set, and that is kind of a skill set that like as you said our brains aren't
Yeah.
adapted to do that, and you have to kind of learn that, which was just kind of interesting to see how folks who already were engaging in online friendships and online communities like transitioned differently into the pandemic than folks
Mhm.
who had none of that.
Yeah.
um
Yeah. I think that's a really good segue to something that I wanted to get to, which is like the concept of online communities. Like that's such a huge important part of like the things that we do. The online the community aspect of creating content and just sort of connecting online. Like the communities are very important. So one of the things I wanted to talk about was it was something that I definitely wanted to include in these conversations tonight, because I know for us, starting Rule of Lore, the community was never far from our conversations when we started talking about building this channel and making this channel. We didn't want it to be like a just sort of like we're going to center us. Like on some level, that is kind of the way Twitch works, right? Like you have to have some sort of grounding center where like Because if you have, I've seen people make it work. So that's not to say this can't happen, but like if you have a sort of like a carousel of people coming through your channel and that's your model, it's difficult for people to connect to like really want, because they'll come in and they'll look at it and say, oh, I like these people are pretty cool and I'm fascinated by what they're doing, and then they come back next time and it's a different set of people and they're like, this isn't what I was expecting. And so just by nature of that, that matters. But even with that, we kind of wanted to center the community of rule of lore, which is hence Ramblemancy. Like that's why we have this. That's why we do this, is so that we can actually sit here and actually have this time, at least some scheduled time during the week, where we can sit and talk with you. Yes, you, all of you out there.
With you, yes, you at home. This episode of Ramblemancy brought to you by 1920s radio announcer voice.
I wasn't making exactly like a real point there. I was just sort of trying to figure out how to transition into this as a topic, and I just kept going. So like, please feel free to cut me off at any time and say something.
No, I got a really bad, weird tangent
Go
from
for
something
it.
you said about how when you go into a Twitch channel and you see people and then you come in next time and you see other people, I don't know if this is everyone's experience, but it kind of made me think of how Twitch is almost more personality based than YouTube because it has that hyper personal element. Like I can go to a YouTube channel that produces content that I like, and if another person were to come over and do the voiceover or give me like whatever, unless it is a channel that I specifically go to for like, shooting the shit and just like chatting, like if it's an informational or whatever, I don't really care who's giving me that information. But with Twitch, like it really is personality versus content. And I don't know, that just kind of hit me when you were talking about how striking that is on Twitch versus like YouTube.
And it wasn't a realization that I had landed on until just a few days ago, where I don't even remember what I was doing, but I just happened to have some free time when I normally wouldn't, and I jumped over to Twitch and I saw that Hyper RPG was streaming. I jumped over there and I saw it was Zach and Malika Eubank talking, and they were talking about this very thing. They're talking about like the future of Hyper RPG and like sort of changing their model, because in the past they've brought on just sort of a wealth of personalities. Their model was one where they wanted to have a platform where they could say, oh, hey, you've got a story to tell, well, come on over here and tell that story. But what that has done is it's sort of forced them to kind of sacrifice the way that they put it in terms of brand loyalty. I personally don't like that kind of terminology when it comes to with what they do. Sure, with what we do, I'm not as comfortable with that conversation, but with that terminology. But yeah, like it was very interesting because what they're talking about is essentially how they, starting Hyper RPG, didn't want to put themselves at the center of it, because both of them, and I relate to this very much, not great at social media, and and you kind of have to be if you are kind of becoming a like an on-screen personality of some kind, especially on Twitch. But now they're sort of forced, given their situation right now, they're sort of forced to look at doing that and changing the model a little bit. And I didn't even consider that until I heard them talking about it. I was like, wow, that's really interesting. And it's very interesting, especially to hear people who have industry experience, right, saying these things. It tends to carry a little bit more weight for me when I hear that from them, and I'm like, wow, that's a good point and it makes sense, but like it's not a conclusion I would have necessarily arrived at by myself.
Yeah. So. Do you know what they meant when they said brand loyalty? Was it about like what angle of that they were referring to?
They were talking about growth of the channel, of their social media presence, of like retention of viewers and that kind of thing. They were talking largely in terms of that they like, again, I sort of came in without any real context for the conversation, and I stuck around long enough to get a gist of what they were saying. It was kind of towards the end of their stream, so I didn't catch a lot of it. But what I understood them to be saying is that at a certain point they were in like 2019 they were saying like, yes, this is the year of the RPG. We are going to like have everything, like all these cool RPG streams, have just a wide variety of people come on. If they've got a story, we've got a platform, they can come tell their stories. And what ended up happening was that with that, they basically saw no growth over the course of that year. They saw, in fact, they lost like viewership and stuff over the course of that year. So when they were talking about like brand loyalty, they're kind of talking it in terms of like their audience was not to the channel Hyper RPG, but rather to individual individual shows and programming that they did. And so when one would end, that viewership would sort of dissipate, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Interesting.
Reardon makes actually an interesting point here about like difference between YouTube and Twitch content and editing. But like he said that there's a lot to be said about the editing of information. Like you can edit content to be very hyperactive on YouTube, but you can't sustain the level of like hyperactivity that YouTube like cut edited content does, right? You just can't.
Yeah. I've seen people try to sort of mess with like the people who have stream decks where they cut between different crops and stuff like that on their channels, and where like they'll like do a quick like a zoom in kind of cut, and then they'll do like a like I've seen that.
I fucking love it so much.
It's great. I love
I fucking love when people have like really dumb angles. Like people took that and memeified it where it was like the side of their head, like the back side of their head. God, I fucking love that shit so much.
My favorite thing is when you've got like, like a 3/4 body angle on the person. You can see like their keyboard and their desk and everything else. And it's all pretty. And we've got RGB chroma and all that stuff. And then like the moments where they stream deck to zoom in on like this much of their face and you can see them lean into their microphone to say something. Like that is my favorite shit.
It makes me so happy.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I'm also a huge fan of the slow zoom. The slow zoom will never
for the slow zoom.
never not make me laugh, like every time.
Oh man, there's a streamer who I don't watch her streams, but I follow her on Twitter. But she has one like that's like here, and then like up here. It's like a top down view. And I just love it. She'll do boom, 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 and I love it. This is fantastic quality content.
Truly excellent.
Perfect. This is another like weird thing that's going to happen to me when we go back to having more in-person interactions. But like, there's a certain amount. There's a thing you can do online that you cannot do in real life because there aren't microphones in real life, and that's leaning into your mic.
Okay, you can't just lean into your your friend and be like, so
I suppose you could.
All the time. It's a problem. I have like used that now exclusively to deliver jokes, and I don't know what I'm going to do.
How are we gonna
touch on a very serious issue in my day-to-day life? Like getting up here to say something is just so good.
Yeah.
It's always funny. It's always spicy.
See,
we love it.
The thing that I always forget that I can do is I can detach my mic. I always forget this gag where I can just do this. Like, okay, so listen.
There's just something like so hilarious, like so self-important in a great like way about just taking my like fucking listen up, everyone.
Right.
Like on a Zoom call with your coworkers, I fucking love it so much.
Yeah. There is like it's got
getting up in people's faces, being like, "Hey, listen." Or whisper. What I love to do is do the whisper, and I think I'm not allowed to go up to people and like whisper punchlines in their ears. I think that's not gonna fly.
Like, subscribe. You can't. I don't think you could get away with that, right?
Right. Like just walk up to somebody in real life, and just when they're not really like looking at you, just whisper like right into their ear, just subscribe. Like you do.
Carry around
an odd time.
A dummy microphone that I whip out at like.
Actually, that's some quality content right there.
Like I'm just in a meeting in real life, and then all of a sudden I just pull out a microphone and be like, "All right, everyone."
Like, all right, we're gonna break it down here for a second.
Circle back to that point. Excuse me. God,
you want to try that again?
Do that, and that's how I get fired. I finally figured it out. I'm gonna do that gag in real life, and that's the end of my career. I think if you plan out the end of your career, if you calculate it, it's okay. If you have control over it, and it's for a gag, I
Yeah.
think I'm fine with that. Honest to
Yeah,
God.
absolutely.
If I
Because
go
then-
out, I want to go out doing a bit.
right, you go out, you do the bit, and then you get to mic drop afterwards, right? Like it's
You literally.
Yeah.
I love it. God, they're gonna hate that so much.
It's like it's just like the physical action of it. It's like it's physical comedy in a space that we are like very much denied physical interaction. It's like, you know, every 3 of the 4 people in here are wearing glasses right now, and I don't know if you've worn glasses for a long time, Rachel, but like I've had them since I was like 8 years old, and there is something so potent about this.
Yeah, that speaks volumes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
Volumes.
my God, I love it.
There's also the
Yeah.
and I haven't been able to whip this one out yet, but like the
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Or the
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
Dang,
Yeah. Listen.
making me wish I had my sunglasses.
You just gotta do what I did and just get yourself a set of blue light filter glasses, and or you could do that. That works too.
All right.
Oh my
That
God.
actually, like, Lucas, the look that you gave is unironically very close to the teacher look that I would give kids when they were being little shits. Like, just the over the top of my glasses, like.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How much is a self-contained microphone, like with a little, like a little speaker? Like how much?
It can't be that much, right?
Yeah.
Like it couldn't be.
'Cause I need one.
Because
I
now
need one.
we're all
Yeah.
gonna get one now.
Oh my God. Because I would love it to have like a little speaker, like a really shitty that just makes my voice sound like.
Oh, yeah.
Mr.
Like
Fizzer.
one of those kid, like those little for little kids that they record on. And it just
my
makes
God.
it just like pops constantly because it's just such terrible quality. But it's just like,
Oh my god. Mr. Fizzer correctly asserts that that's the social equivalent of a handbrake turn off a cliff. That's so fucking funny.
Oh fuck.
Social equivalent of a handbrake turn.
That's great.
Oh
Man,
my God, that's so
I'm-
funny.
I'm never gonna recover from that joke.
No.
God, that's so good. Holy shit. Oh my God, that's how I want to live my whole life. That sentence.
Yeah.
That's what we want to do.
in just a constant state of handbrake turn off clip. It's a sweet spot of like
Oh.
disaster and like making a
Doing
point.
Sweet wheelies off cliffs. Yeah.
Oh,
man,
yes.
that's
Style
all
meets
I aspire
disaster.
to.
Like it's just
Yeah, like you just, you know, the slow-mo, like you're doing all this shit in the car, and then you get like the smash cut to the perspective of the person who's watching the train wreck happen. And it's, you know, it switches to like super slow-mo, and you've got your arm like through the wheel, like keeping it over the side, just like this, and the other hand on the handbrake.
it's just
So like Flat Out, the video game,
Yeah.
the race game.
exactly,
Yeah, exactly,
like
exactly.
Man,
God.
all right, sign me up.
Oh my God, yes. When I decide that I'm ready to quit, that's how I'm doing it. Just 1 week of hell where I do that bit nonstop until they tell me to leave.
Green Day blaring on the stereo. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
With
Perfect.
Green Day.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which song?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Correct,
Yes.
actually.
Just the entire
Sorry, now I'm just-
discography, just all blaring
Yeah,
at
yeah,
once somehow.
Sorry,
Goodness,
now
wow.
21 Guns is a good serious
That's
answer, but I
true.
was the meme lord in me was like, yes, wake me up when September ends as a handbrake turn off the
Oh
cliff.
gosh, everything's in slow motion. Yeah.
Oh my god. Oh boy.
Oh my god, my stomach
Well,
hurts.
Me too.
Oh man,
Like,
yeah.
I'm to the point where like I can feel that I've like strained my dimples.
Yeah.
Like it hurts so much.
Yeah.
Oh my God, because I just, oh my God, I can see, the thing is I can see in my mind my different coworkers, their different breaking points. I
Mhm.
know it. I can see it. I know when they'd all crack. And I just, I'm a great coworker. I'm sorry, this makes me sound horrible.
No, I'm a huge fan of the like so in our Cypher game there is an NPC that I've started running, and I play him as like he's somebody who his entire personality is he just likes to needle people. Like not for any malicious purpose, like he just likes to push. He just likes to needle people and see how far he can push them just for
yeah.
and like honestly that's I
love
don't
it.
I don't do that very often, but like because I have my own social like barriers and whatever, but if I didn't have those, that would be me all the time. I would just be like constantly needling people, just
Pushing
annoying.
buttons is so fun.
Yeah, just oh gosh. But anyway, it's my favorite form of like friendly teasing is
Oh,
that
yeah.
kind of like just button pushing, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I love it so much. It's a hobby for sure. Oh my god.
Oh, this is
what
oh go ahead.
what an excellent Ramblemancy tangent
Honestly,
this has been.
that's literally what I was about to say. Is that like
Yeah.
this is just the epitome of Ramblemancy right here. This is what this show is supposed to be like.
And you see, this is at this point, like when we first started, this is where we'd be starting to wrap down.
Yeah,
But we're just warming up.
that's true. Yeah,
Fantastic. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
this is
The show.
this is peak performance. You might not like it, but
this is what it looks
this
like.
is what this.
This is peak content. Thank you for subscribing.
Subscribe.
But it's never not funny. I'm sorry. They never die. We just talked about it, and I physically laughed. It's always funny. It's always A+ content.
Yeah.
That and camera pans. It was something that I'll always enjoy. My
Very
dying
true.
day.
Yep. Oh God.
Yep.
The world changed when on the day where we combined the slow zoom with the sound of silence. Like that, the world changed on that
Yeah.
day.
Change, and then oh man, I really like it. I liked it, like the sound of Simon and Garfunkel's. I forget the name of the song, but when you like change everything to black and white, and you're just like looking, you're just like,
Yeah, sound of silence.
oh yeah, thank
Yeah,
you. Why did I think it was something else? But yeah, that, and then you turn it black and white, and everything's just like,
That's right.
I love
The slow leaching of color.
yeah, bleaching of color, exactly.
You hear like the "Hello, darkness, my old friend."
Yeah. Oh
That's
God.
when
Or what's
culture
the
hit its
one?
peak.
Hmm?
What's
Yeah.
the one where people always put "to be continued" on stream? Like they.
Oh, the really low bass line, like the
Yeah.
I also love that, like right
Uh,
before a horrible accident or like right before something bad happens,
Yeah.
I
and
think
like the frame before it happens. Yeah,
somebody did
I
that
love
to
to see it.
somebody did that to a clip of us playing Borderlands on stream in the split second before I was hit by a fucking train.
Love
Yeah.
it.
oh,
Yep.
that was good.
I almost forgot that those clips exist, and now I need to go watch them immediately.
I need to go watch them too because they're really good.
Oh God. But anyway, I fully don't know how we get back on the regular topic from here. I don't think we've other than that
No.
one time when we had a 20-minute rash of butt puns. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't think we've ever been this far off the topic that we couldn't get back on.
Well, if you think about it, we're sort of just kind of living the topic right now.
That's
we're
very
connecting.
true.
We're connecting with our audience and with each other over a Zoom call.
Okay, this is funny because Mr. Fizzer says that all started with the looks at the camera in the office, right? And I was literally going to say that.
Yeah.
Vertiman too. I was
Totally.
like, that's the natural progression is like jimming the camera and to like
Yeah.
hello darkness, smile, right? Like
Yeah.
it's very yeah. It's a natural
everything.
progression. You can track the evolution of the meme.
See, we I think we're on topic. We're telling you how to successfully produce video and live content. Just nothing but
Yeah.
angle changes, zoom ins, and getting absurdly close to your mic. That's how that.
All right, kids, listen. This is what
Yeah.
you gotta do.
That's the 3-step. It's
Yeah.
camera zoom, camera angle, real close to mic, profit. That's it. That's video creation.
Yep. Yep.
The
Profit.
end.
Yeah.
Like, be
I can
free, everybody.
retired.
Truly,
Yeah,
like
that's
one of
it.
the
You-
one
Mm.
of the major secrets to content creation is just being very close to your mic.
Yeah, like it's gosh.
It is the
I'm so sorry.
no, it's good. It's the video streaming way of being flashy. You know, that's
Yeah.
Mhm.
you have to translate that somehow. So
Also very important, RGB chroma.
Yeah. Yeah. You cannot
Absolutely.
be successful without
Mhm.
it. Oh,
That's true.
fucking hell.
and this is highly distracting. Oh, hey, it was like the copper mugs last week, but now it's the
Yeah.
it's the
You know what's funny? I was gonna say that about the glasses earlier. I was gonna say that about the glasses, right? Like the
Yeah.
glasses are the same version. We had Omar Najam as a guest last week, and was that only last week? That feels like forever ago.
oh, at least 2 or 3 weeks, but
That was-
time's not real.
That was last week.
A lot's
Yeah,
hap-
buddy.
Listen, A lot's happened since then.
It's been so many years. I don't know what that sounds like, but I'm gonna listen later and find out.
Listen.
No, but like
Always funny.
so we had Omar, and like Omar interrupted me and was like, "Okay, listen, I have an important thing to say, but before we get to that, are you rocking a copper cup?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then he showed me his copper cup, and then Freeman pulled his, which he wasn't using, but happened to be within arm's reach. And like,
Did an angel get its wings? Was this like some sort of cosmic moment?
I guess so. Like, I don't know. I feel like this week it's either the RGB chroma or it's the glasses. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's one of those two.
I like the glasses because I'm not left out of that one. Let's
There
do
you
that
go.
one.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
I do not mind. I don't mind being left out. It's okay.
I mean, you pulled the sunglasses. That counts. That totally counts.
I got you. See, listen, I have a set of props for every situation possible. I just within
including your
arm's reach.
ridiculous pine cone.
Yeah, including my ridiculous. I love you.
Is it large? Oh God, it's cursed. Oh, I was expecting it to be large, not that large.
Oh no, it's from the redwoods. It's incredible. It's.
Oh my God, I was not expecting.
If there's a case, I'll bring it out camping with me, and if I run out of fire starter, that thing packs a lot of sap. I'll tell you, that thing will start a fire in a second.
If I was ever going to refer to that cone in text form, I would absolutely use doggo text.
Yeah.
Cone.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I've never referred to a pine cone just as a cone.
The pine cone is definitely an eldritch entity. Like this.
Yeah, well.
Oh yeah.
I mean, for a cryptid, it's expected.
Yeah,
right? So,
that's right. Freeman is our. John might be our resident bard, but Freeman is our resident cryptid. So.
Ooh.
I have to be the spooky one.
Is it? Okay, we're getting even further off topic, but do you know a lot about cones? Could you tell me, what is a cone? A flower, a leaf, or a branch, or a bud, or a what is it?
I don't know. I think I thought it was just a cone, but I couldn't be. I don't know.
Is a cone its own category? Are there other cones that are not pine cones?
In the words of Sigmund Freud,
there's
sometimes a cone is just a cone.
I believe there's fir. What are they called? There's fir cones.
Mm-hmm.
What do they do? Do they have seeds?
Yeah.
Okay. We learned something today. Thank you. That was helpful.
Also, never not funny. Lean into the mic.
Oh my goodness.
This is the end of the episode.
We end your show and you make me cry. What the fuck?
Oh, it's a special Ramblemancy. When we are
I'm
so.
supposed to keep my composure in this. It's never gonna happen.
Oh my god. Yes, some cones only open with fire. This is true. Those are.
I suppose now when we send out the invite messages, we're gonna have to be like, make sure to wear your waterproof makeup when you come.
Learn today that a cone is just a cone. You know, take every moment to educate yourself, kids. You know, sometimes there's nothing more. Sometimes it's just what it is.
You know, it's just like a cone being a cone. A cone, it's just a thing with it. That's.
Yeah. Great. Cool.
Third time.
That's quickly becoming one of my favorite bits. I just want to, like, as of today, because today is the day that I broke it out for the first time, and I've done it 3 times already today.
Oh my god. Okay. That's a dumb question. That reminds me of asking a ridiculously dumb question like that. My coworker one day, and it's like a running bit in our office. He walked in one day and he looked me dead in the eyes and he asked me, "Rachel, do frogs eat leaves?" And I legitimately had to pause for like a minute because they're always pictured on leaves and sometimes they have little holes in them. And I had a genuine moment. I was like, "Do frogs eat leaves?" And now, "Do frogs eat leaves?" is like our question whenever we're at like a party or something and someone wants to break the ice or get someone else out of an awkward situation. As you walk into that conversation, go, "Rachel, I have a question for you and I need to talk to you alone about it." And you ask them if frogs eat leaves and then you go away. It's become code now.
I love that. Oh god. And honestly, I don't know where we go from here.
No, that's.
I truly do not.
Great question. What are frogs? Yeah. And what do they eat? If not leaves, I don't know.
Really makes you think.
Flies. but can they sustain off flies? It's got to be more than that. There's got to be something deeper.
Deeper than the pond they were spawned in.
What a word, spawned, by the way.
I know. I never want to say it again.
It's
but it's also like like a non-superhero kind of like anti. I don't know.
Oh yeah, spawn like the
Spawn,
yeah. I understand what you mean.
Yeah, sure.
I have no problem saying like respawn for video games, but I don't know why. But like spawning, referring to like creatures, just
real life things?
It creeps me the hell out.
Right,
like birth is just a spawning.
It's
like
it's funny to me because like I like the connotation for me is through like video games, and so in my mind when I picture like an animal spawning, I just imagine just suddenly frogs just popping up out of nowhere.
Yeah, like tadpoles.
Right, like they're just there all of a sudden. And
little burst of blue light, and then a minute later the missile hits them, and you hear "Kill-tacular" from the Halo announcer.
Oh Jesus!
I love it. I love it.
Okay. I actually
sorry for ruining your show.
No, absolutely not.
This is
possible.
This is Ramblemancy.
This is what Ramblemancy was always supposed to be, but we are usually. I love telling the story of our earliest Ramblemancies because they were very like if you go back and watch our like our first two Ramblemancies were very like stiff, very serious, very like almost lectury. And I remember like after our first couple of Ramblemancies we had a meeting and I was like, you guys, we have to be less professional. Like we can't do this.
Gotta chill the fuck out. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like this is the ideal. This is like
fantastic.
Yeah. Oh my god.
But we don't. If we're not off the rails, it's not Ramblemancy.
Yeah, I actually did have a question that was kind of back on topic, which is so Ray, you recently kind of started your own sort of solo streaming, like your own channel, Ray's Retros. So like what has been kind of your experience? I mean, had you done solo streaming before that or like
so I mean solo streaming in that it was just me, but I was on the Resonym channel, which is still a group owned channel. So that was my first time, no one else is accountable for what goes up in this channel besides me.
Right. So I'm curious what your experience has been as far as like the difference between like the way that you, not in the way that you interact, the way that you, and we kind of did touch a little bit on this, but like the way you interact, the way that you personally like curate your, not just your community, but also your streaming content and that kind of stuff. Like what do you like, what's kind of been your experience there? Like,
well, the first thing that comes to mind is on my personal channel, I can say fuck and it's amazing. And that has changed my personal relationship with streaming.
Sure, yeah.
But yeah, so starting my own channel was honestly really just a space for like me to have, I guess, my own control again. So when I started Resonym, the Resonym Twitch channel, it was pretty much just me doing all of the legwork and occasionally pulling in my coworkers to sit on the couch with me and like chat with me. Because that was the whole idea behind the Resonym channel, was it was supposed to be like literally couch co-op. We had our office and then we had this big red couch and a TV where we would hang out after work. And I was like, let's just stream that. And so when it started, I was doing kind of all the legwork. I learned how to stream. I got us mods. I did the commands. And I was like, you just sit and just do what you normally do. And as it's evolved, my like coworkers have wanted to actually like start their own like segments where it's just them or whatever, which is really awesome. That's always what it was like supposed to be. But eventually I was like, ooh, I want to have my own space again. So yeah, I started streaming on Resonym, or not Resonym, Ray's Retros. And I guess it's weird. I thought there would be no difference, but there absolutely is. And it's really weird. I always thought like Resonym, the Ray you see on there is like just me normally, but I definitely do put a little bit of a filter on, because at the end of the day, it's a company channel. I remember my boss being like, Rachel, you gotta stop saying fuck on our company channel that makes board games for children. You gotta stop it. And I know that sounds like, oh my God, swearing is not my personality. I swear, I promise it's not. But it's partly just like being self-aware on the Resonym channel that I'm just not on my own channel. My own channel has its own special brand of chaos that I have to like rein in a little bit on Resonym. Which is nice. I mean, honestly, the hardest thing is switching back and forth between the two. That's what I really started to notice. It was when I was trying to go back and forth. But yeah, my community, I approach community management the same way, no matter where I am. Honestly, that's stayed the same. It's mostly just, how I present myself. I do a little bit of less of the I don't want to call it corporate speech because nothing about Resonym is corporate, but a little bit less of the,
the customer service voice.
Yeah, a little bit less of the customer service voice. At the end of the day, the Resonym channel is there to build a community, but also to, get people interested in Resonym. So at the end of the day, at the very, very end of the line, I guess you could say we are, trying to get people interested in our board games. And I always have that in the teensy weensy back of my mind. And even though that doesn't affect like 99% of what I do and say, occasionally, you notice it a little bit when you just have total freedom, which is a little terrifying. And so in a lot of ways, I prefer streaming on my personal channel because it's a little bit more free, but also it's fucking terrifying. Like I had the other day, like the first time I really had like a somewhat negative person come into my chat and really like be negative. And even though when I stream personally on the Resonym channel, it's still just me, the idea that I have a company behind me, I think, and people know that when they come in, I think kind of scares some people off from being shitty. Even though we're a small indie company, people kind of know that. And people can tell when they come into my personal channel that it's just me. And that makes some shitty people feel safe. And so it's a trade-off, it's a trade-off. So I don't know if that answered your question.
No, absolutely. This is absolutely.
That was
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. No, that's oh, go ahead, John.
I was just gonna say it's interesting because like I'm not, I'm around here, and so I'm in chat for other shows, and like in the early days of Ramblemancy, I was in chat as a moderator, and I moderate for a different person who's a solo streamer, and there is a much higher occurrence rate of people being shitty in solo streamers chats as compared to like our channel. I feel like I very seldom see it around here anymore. Like there were a couple instances very early on, and then like kind of not really very much anymore. But like it feels like, especially the larger the community grows and the higher the numbers the solo streamers starting to pull, like the more you start to see that kind of behavior in there. And like that does wind up being when having a mod team there is very nice.
Yeah, no. And it's also definitely part of, either being like a person of color or a woman. Like you see that, like just that one individual on stream, I feel like for some reason they're just like, I'm going to be shitty to this person today. And I think it's like a little thing, but like the Resonym profile photo is like a corporate logo.
Yeah.
It's not like a cute drawing of me, And I think it just triggers something in shitty people's brains that like, I can target this person versus, oh, this is vaguely related to a brand, even though the brand is 5 people. Like, see, we can't do anything.
That's
but like
really interesting because I actually never thought of that side of it. Right, the fact that like if a channel presents as like a group, right, versus a solo streamer, that safety people would be. That's really interesting.
At least that's how I've parsed out my difference in experience. Like I've only streamed on my personal channel maybe a handful of times, 7 times, and I've already had probably more like targeted negative attention that I've had on almost 2 years of Resonym. And the only real negative attention I got on Resonym was in the first couple months when it was just me, and you looked through the VODs and it was just my face.
Right.
And like, I mean, again, I'm like a white woman, so it's like not as bad as a lot of people, but like that is that's my like small snapshot of the difference. And it's obviously compounded for other folks, but
that's very interesting. Like I'd never even considered that aspect of it, but
and also it's like a difference in how I react to things. Like I know that if someone was shitty, like I have people behind me, not just my mods, but like coworkers behind me. And there's just something different about being out there on your own. At the end of the day, no one really gives a shit if someone's shitty to you. Like it doesn't affect a larger brand.
Right.
And you have to like make people care about it, but it's different than inherently coworkers protect each other, especially in a small indie company. We all protect each other. So yeah, there's, as much as I love the freedom, that kind of space, has its own challenges as well. So I genuinely really appreciate having both, because I think if I was just on my personal channel, I think I could do it, but I'm a very sensitive streamer. Like after those streams, I turn off my camera and I think about it all night. I think about that one shitty thing, that one person, like that gets me. And I don't think I'll ever get that streamer brain of like not caring ever. I will always care. And I think if that was my only experience on like the Twitch space, that would get really, really tough. So
that makes sense. Also, welcome Gemini Lightning and John Numa. Good to see you guys. And Gemini Lightning subscribed for 13 months. Congrats and thank you so much.
Your baby is 4 months old now. Congratulations.
Still funny.
Oh gosh.
Hope parenthood is treating you well.
Mr. Fisher says there's a deeper sociological point lying in here somewhere about how groups of people interact versus individuals. And I think yeah, that's true. And it's something that I feel like probably is not something we're going to be able to get to during the scope of this stream, but it's something that, because like it's new to me. Like as you were talking, I was like, wow, yeah, I didn't even think about that. But like and so now I kind of just want to like sit with that and just go, huh, and just kind of parse that, because that's really an interesting thing. Because I've said, I have done solo streaming before, but here, right, like on Rule of Lore, and it's very interesting. Like a lot of the same stuff applies, right, in terms of how it affects you personally, in terms of like your how you feel afterwards and during and whatever.
A shitty comment is a shitty comment no matter where you are.
Right.
Like,
but like it never occurred to me to even think that like one of the things that was sort of shielding me from some of the shittier aspects of like solo streaming was the fact that it like, you know, it looks like we are like, because we have our logo as the channel icon and stuff, and
you've got different faces in your VODs.
Yeah, typically that's what happens to us. We'll get bots, not trolls.
A more perfectly timed,
what a great example.
Perfectly timed.
Thank you.
Follow bot.
Whatever follow bot that was.
You guys don't want to become famous? Wow, you're really way to tank your content creation career. We
really are kind of shooting ourselves in the foot on here.
By foolers, primes, just trying to pronounce all of the
weird umlauts.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
I just glanced over at chat and saw that, and I was like, "Huh, that's opportune." Anyway, I'll just click the delete button now.
Oh god. Yeah. No, like that's really interesting. As far as what about, okay, so kind of shifting to another aspect of kind of the same question. What about as far as like, because you did mention that a lot of your stream audience for your own channel versus on Resonym is kind of a lot of the same. There's a huge overlap there. So
totally.
Has there been any difference? I'm curious then, has there been any difference in terms of how like the interactions or?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. So when I started out, obviously it was just people who liked me from Resonym coming over to support me. I guess the big difference in the community that I'm slowly building is just we built Resonym off of, you know, indie video games and board games was kind of like what we streamed. And right now I'm streaming retro games, which brings in a different audience. I've been lucky. A lot of the folks that, you know, have come in have been lovely, but the you know, the people who I get who are less great, some of the shittier people, it's typically, you know, policing what is retro gaming and who can be a retro gamer. So that's really fun. But just in terms of the folks who actually stick around, I guess it's different because I don't exist as Ray's Retros outside of Twitch. As of right now, I don't have a Discord, don't have a specific Twitter, don't have like a brand. So I guess I feel at the moment more disconnected from those folks in that sense. Like I stream on Resonym and I interact with those people, and then I see them in Discord all week. It's part of my job is to interact with those people in Discord and on Twitter. And Ray's Retros is pretty much just like my space to decompress. So in a way they get a more personal side of me because it's on Sunday night when I'm tired and it's been a week. And so I have a more intimate and personal relationship with a lot of the folks on Ray's Retros. But it's not as consistent, if that makes sense. So it's weird. They get a very quick snapshot of like me being like the most me I am on camera. And then I go quiet for 6 days and then I come back. And so I don't know. I interact with all of my like viewers the same way. Except for, you know, I can't interact with them on Discord. So I'd be interested to hear what they think. The differences. I'd really, because I don't want to speak on their behalf. I mean, I just like streaming and I like hanging out with people. I've become genuine friends with a lot of the people in Resonym just because it's been going on for 2 years.
Right.
So ask that question again in 2 years when Ray's Retros has had the same amount of time to build a community. Right now, I'm still kind of getting to know people. This is going to sound really weird. I'm still kind of distrustful because you don't know people. Like I am it takes a long time to go from having it be like a parasocial relationship to being like I trust you and I know you're you're cool. And that sounds shitty, but that's just kind of the arc of being a streamer. Is like you like people and you want them to stick around, but you're also like, you could say horrible shit at any moment and I have no reason to believe you won't.
Right.
And I'm slowly gaining that trust with people, but I have that foundation set with Resonym, and I'm very lucky that I got to bring that over to Raise Retros. I genuinely think if I didn't have a reason to start streaming for Resonym, I don't think I ever would have taken the plunge, because that idea of sitting in front of a camera with 0 viewers is like terrifying to me. And even with when I started Resonym, I was a mod on a pretty big board game channel, and I was very kind of like you, Lucas, I like to be in the spotlight, so people like knew my personality as a mod, and people who vibed with that came over immediately. Like I never had the phase of streaming to 1 or 0 people because that terrifies me. So that went on a tangent. I don't know how I got there. Raise Retros is still growing. I'm still learning what my Raise Retros community is, honestly. I don't feel like we're very cohesive right now, and that's partly because it's once a week, just kind of my outlet right now. So whereas Resonym is really a tangible community that exists all days. So
that makes sense. I had something that I wanted to say in response to something that you said, but before I do,
Sure.
I just wanted to give a quick greeting, shout out. Hello, Alpha Dean. Dean, welcome.
Hey.
Good to see you, as always.
Oh my God, Mr. Fizzer, I actually played Putt Putt on stream, not on Raise Retros, but on Resonym, because I found out one of my coworkers played it as a child, and we just like cried on stream together about rediscovering it. It was fantastic.
That's
probably
amazing.
gave my computer horrible malware, because I got it from maybe not a reputable source. 100% worth it. Totally worth it. I would die. I would what is it? Handbrake off a cliff for Putt Putt for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh my God.
If I ever find another Super Metroid nerd as deep as I am in that, like, I don't know what I'll do. I will have no idea how to like. I mean, you just handbrake off the cliff at that point.
You just at that point, you're like, bye.
I'm glad I've met you. Someone else exists. Okay, bye.
I don't know what to do with this information.
Fizzer, just real quick, which is your favorite Putt Putt? I have to know, because there's S tier Putt Putts, and then there is the not S tier Putt Putts. So hot takes. I want your Putt Putt hot takes. My chat now. God damn it.
Hello, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Putt Puttmancy.
Oh gosh.
I wanted to.
If you ever want to do that, I'm here. If you ever want a completely unrelated spin-off show, please, dear God, give me a platform, please, talk about my Putt Putt lore.
I'm gonna put this down. Hold on, we just have.
I'm just gonna write some quick notes over here. Don't worry about it.
Oh, please.
Puttmancy. All right.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. Sorry, Lucas. I will let you ask your question now. I promise.
I was just thinking that like what you were saying about like the experience of streaming to like 0 people. There's something that is terrifying about just silence, and that's true to me. That's true for me in terms of, and like it might have something to do with the fact that like I have denied it for too long, but like I am definitely an extrovert, like 100% I am. And so like there's something to me that is like, even just in conversations, and John can tell you, like there have been times when we've been sitting in a Discord call, and like when I've been particularly stressed out, and if I'll say something, and if I'm met with silence, I just get more and more like
Oh God, it's the worst.
Yeah. So like on streaming to like nobody by myself, I'm right there with you. That to me is a nightmare scenario.
Like I would rather stream to 1,000 people than stream to none.
Yeah.
And I totally would. Because there's something about, especially because I put so much energy into streaming, and not that other people don't, but it manifests in different ways. Mine manifests in a hyper social kind of energy, and to throw that out there and get nothing back is like, it just doesn't vibe with me.
Yeah, I absolutely am someone who thrives on other people's energy. Like I just match the energy level of whoever I'm around. That's me. Like and so I definitely need that input in order to give output. Like it's directly proportional to like
So, and I have so much respect for people who take that plunge with like no one online, knowing who they are and showing up because they know them and just saying, I'm going to start streaming like that. You have all my respect in the world, because I could never. I could absolutely never.
Yeah. I want to say, so Dean, by the way, John, I don't know if you saw, but Dean says, you do realize that I have played every Super Metroid since, hold on, I lost it in chat. Since day one. I love me some Somas. Yeah, so.
We'll talk, Dean. I've played like basically every 2D Super Metroid, or every 2D like Metroidvania game and Metroid game. It's my shit. I haven't actually. I realize this is sacrilege. Sorry, this is John's Metroid primetime hour now. But like the only games I haven't played, and I realize this is sacrilege for somebody who likes the Metroid series, is I haven't played the Prime games because I never had a GameCube. And I think they might be on Switch now, which I have one of those, so I could maybe actually play the Prime trilogy at this point. Anyway, thank you for entertaining me on this wild ride. But I feel like Super Metroid is just it's the quintessential Metroidvania experience.
Listen, after what happened earlier, I don't think anything else that happens on this stream tonight can be considered wild. So.
I've always wanted to get into Metroid. I have Super Metroid for my SNES, and it's one of those things I tried, but I think I tried when I was too young, and I think I need to go back as like an adult with a fully formed brain and the ability to problem solve and like actually try it again.
It's like it's from like in part because there's only so much information they can pack onto those tiny little discs, but I love that. I love the atmosphere of that game. It is so atmospheric. Those first few levels where the planet is like cold and dead and you arrive and it's raining, like there's that thunderstorm outside, and even in the caverns you can still hear like that outside every few seconds. Like you can hear the muted rain against the outside of the cavern, and like all of the lights are off, the music is different, there's like dust and cobwebs and like those tiny little like there's a name for them and I can't remember what it is, but like all of that stuff, like it just combines to make, I think, one of the best, like that was a formative gameplay experience for me, because I played it when I was like 8 years old or something. Like,
see, now when I play Super Metroid on stream, I'll know who to hit up for.
Oh my god, please.
But seriously though, there's something about the sound design of like those SNES games that it's like, if for some reason it feels more magical, and I don't know how to describe it, but hot damn.
First of all, Gemini Lightning, thank you so much for the bits. I appreciate that. Gemini says, you all are brilliant, and I appreciate every one of you. Oh, Gemini, you can't just come in here and do this to us.
You can't just come in here and give me feelings. What the fuck?
Thank you so much, Gemini. We appreciate you very much as well. Also, oh my god, Rose.
Well,
Rose has gifted some subs today. Freeman, congrats on the sub.
Look at that.
I do want to go up to John Numa, because John Numa says, it's interesting listening to this as someone who started streaming in January and regularly gets 0 to 3 viewers. This is very interesting, and yet I still offer commentary, but interaction is awesome. And that's very that's actually a thing that I have heard before, which is, oh my god, Geek Outs. Thank you so much.
And we've started
the
hype train.
Here goes.
Let's go.
But
it's a shame I can hear Drac right now.
Drac being like, I bet you can't get level 2, right? Like this is Drac. Drac
is a hype train hype man. I did not know this.
He
that feels oddly out of
I know. It's the thing is, I think Drac is really good at it when he's not hyping himself. For that, he requires other people.
Facts.
So
ooh, thank you for the sub to me.
I've adopted that tendency of his in my friends' channels. Like when a hype train starts, especially the ones that I mod, like I'll just be like, bet you guys can't hit level 4.
Oh my God. Thank you so much. But yeah, no, like to John Numa's point, I think it's interesting because like what I've heard, what like just the common wisdom seems to be that if you're just starting out streaming, that's exactly what you got to do. Like if you've got, 0 to like 5 people, like just because you're getting nothing back, like that's how you build that, right? You build it by having that that interaction. Like you're talking constantly, you're interacting, and whether or not you're getting anything back. And that is precisely what's exhausting to me. Like that's exactly the kind of thing that's exhausting to me. Like even in person, I'm not gonna lie. Like I have definitely been on dates before where I'm trying to start conversations and I'm just getting nothing back.
Yeah,
and then I just can't do it. It's nightmare scenario for me. Like that is so like even in like in-person situation, that's rough on me. So if you can do that, I am just know that I am very impressed by you.
Same. Co-signed.
Yeah. I did have, oh my gosh, everybody, thank you so much for the subs and the bits. Thank you. I had a question just sort of for everybody here and for those of you in chat who have created both on and off stream. My question is I'm still trying to work on the exact phrasing of the question that I'm trying to get at here, but I think it's something to the effect of like, what have been some of the key differences between, like, I know a lot of us are involved in like tabletop RPGs and stuff like that, but we've a lot of the stuff that we've done, gaming, even if it's like couch co-op offline, like off stream, what has been sort of the key difference for you as between like creating and connecting with people through these things offline as opposed to on stream?
There is a very palpable, like there's a big difference between sitting in a Discord server with a few of your friends and streaming a game there, like over just to like, 2 or 3 other people that you know and are talking to, and streaming a game on Twitch. There's a big difference between those two things, like between those two experiences, right? They're not the same.
There's just like an awareness that I feel when I'm on camera. I especially feel like I think honestly the biggest thing for me is I feel some sort of pressure to like look a certain way and like project in a certain way, that like when I have no face cam on, I'm in my fucking like pajamas and I'm just hanging out with my friends, I'm just more relaxed. And I wish I had that confidence to like be that on stream, but I just don't. And I think that always kind of affects a little bit what you see like on the other side and how I interact with people.
Like I started my career as a teacher, right? And I did a lot of substitute teaching. And one of the things that Lucas had to tell me early on, like, was like, you need to be less Teacher John on stream. Because
take Teacher John and put him away for a little while.
Professor
just, like,
Boyle.
Teacher John seems really nice, guys.
This is Mr. Dr. Professor Boyle, Lord Esquire. But like, because that was yes, Koala is correct. Shot for Teacher John.
There it is.
But like that was like the kind of, I think, the most way I was practiced in being on, and it just like my brain just kind of associated with the same thing. It's like I have to be on for this, and it defaulted to that because it's what I had the most experience with, which was standing in front of a mob of hormonal preteens and trying not to be murdered. Rather, I didn't ever think they were going to harm me. I was more afraid they would like kill each other.
Yeah, that's
valid
always
concern.
Yeah. Freeman, what, like, because you were like deep in tabletop RPGs before we started streaming, so like I'm curious what your take is from like just offline streaming to going to online.
Wow, I don't think I really fully have an answer because I'm still figuring it out, and here's why. So first of all, like I am like, when it comes to socializing, I am heavily like on the fence. I'm 50-50 like introvert and extrovert. And it will be very crazy when I have like high peaks of like oh, I'm the most social motherfucker in existence. And then there's points where I'm like, but when we're streaming on here, I don't feel that. Like I'm just existing, I'm doing it, and I'm here. But the problem with that too sometimes is like when I do have those high points of social, I'm doing this, I just don't feed off the audience the same way I do as if I'm in a room. And
Interesting.
when I did a little bit of theater and I was actually on the stage as a character, that was something that I used as, you know, as ammunition. The audience kind of gave me that energy, kind of fed me a little bit, and I could like perform. And the same with your actors, of course, with your team. But like sometimes you don't have that same thing here, you know. Like they're there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know you guys are
it's
out
different.
there, but but it's a little different, you know. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
That's that's a that's a good point. Like definitely a difference between like the energy that you have from like seeing words on a screen to like actually like seeing
mhm.
people in the audience. And I think Vertiman said something similar earlier, which is uh like
Yeah, like a haptic feedback that I truly
Mhm.
miss. The feeling that you have the audience's attention, the reverb you
Mhm.
get from your voice. Because I will divulge this about Verdiman. He's a singer. I went to college with him, and I was in one of the same choral ensembles that he was later after he wasn't in anymore. But yeah, the palpable sense of connection with others in the same room.
Mhm.
That's a very potent choral experience. That one.
Yeah.
And I do because I haven't sung choral music in a long time, but I do really really miss that moment at the very end of a piece when you can hear the sound still ringing in the room, but there's that
Oh,
silence, and you know that every eye and every ear is up here,
Mhm.
yeah,
and then it breaks into
right.
applause or whatever. But like that moment right there.
it's like
Yeah.
physical. Like, I mean, I've
Mhm.
I've done brief performing, but like it's literally like a physical feedback that you just don't get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's something
Mhm.
biological of like when you're getting that, you also amp it up. And
I
Like, oh, that feels really good.
yeah,
Whoa.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's awesome. I mean, for those of us who are performers, that's like the best feeling, is getting that physical feedback from a room of people or an audience of people. And it's just, you can condition yourself to feel that same way on like camera, but it's different. And some people
Mhm.
can't, and I'm still getting there, and
yeah.
it's just different. It's
Yeah.
hard.
I,
Because like I often refer to, like, because it's what it is. This is a form of entertainment, right? We're all a kind of performer, like when we're
Yeah.
doing this. um but like it's very different than I think so many other forms of entertainment or performance, because of the combination of things. Like it has all of the like lights and camera and like setup of something like more produced, but it's also live.
mhm.
And
Yeah.
so like
Well, it's
I don't know.
interesting. So I do want to get back to chat because I saw that Dean had something cool to say as well,
Mhm.
which is pretty interesting. But since we're on the exact subject right now that I was going to comment on, which is the aspect of like performing like offline, like on a stage versus performing here. And I remember like a key difference for me. It's very interesting. So I actually am kind of the opposite from what you guys are talking about, John and Freeman and Vertiman. What you're referring to, that being on stage and getting that feedback. For me, I'll always talk about like whenever I was going to perform, um, and I would like be a wreck right up until the moment I got onto stage, and then clicked and we go. Online, I find that I skip the first step. I skip
Mm.
the first step and I just go straight. I just have a switch now. I can just flip it on and flip it off, right? Like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and that's been kind of a big difference for me as far as that goes. But I think where that comes from, I'm not sure that that has anything to do with like being on stream or off
Hmm.
stream or anything like that. I think for me where it comes from is I was also able to do that with TTRPGs, like running in-person games. When it came to TTRPGs, there's only one time in my entire life that I remember having like the pre-game nerves, and that was when I was playing a game for almost like literal strangers at Gen Con with like that group that we like.
Oh,
It wasn't a con
you
game.
saint.
It
How
was
do you do that?
Oh, it wasn't a con game.
Oh,
It was
okay.
it was one that we sort of put together that was intended for like people that we knew but like had never actually met in person until Gen Con. But then we ended up getting like a much larger group of that included people that we literally met that day. And so like as people were like preparing characters and whatever, I had to step away. I had to take a bathroom break, which was really actually a panic break.
Yeah.
But that's beside the point. The point is that I think the fact that this is, if I had come into streaming through anything other than TTRPGs, then maybe I would still experience that. But because TTRPGs were sort of my like bridge point between like offline kind of performance sort of stuff and like this,
Yeah.
I
It
think
is like the
yeah,
only like at home performance.
Mhm.
Like, no way. That's just really
yeah,
I thought about
It-
that before.
And I think this is true of home games too. With me, the thing that always got me over the pre in outside of just like doing it more, the thing that always got me over the pre-performance nerves was like the little rituals of things you would do beforehand, like pulling on the robe, zip it up, button at the top, pull on your stole, and now I'm on. Like, or even just like having the robe on, like chilling in the green room, you know, in the 20 minutes beforehand, but then like with it open because it's hot as shit in those robes. But like that moment of like zip, clip, pull the stole on, stand up and pretend like you're a penguin in Harry Potter, and like that's the switch that flips, and now I'm in choir performer mode, or like whatever it is, or like if I was walking into a seminar performance, like yeah.
I wanted to go back to what Dean said earlier because I think back to kind of the original question. Dean says it's crazy for me because I started way before the internet. I had to learn how to deal with people, so when it came to being on a computer stream, it was very easy. Faceless fans was easy to deal with. I think maybe, and that's a good point because I think actually maybe that it's not entirely the fact. Like I was saying, my difference between being like the performance on stage versus here. There's also probably a part of that as well. Like while I don't get the feedback from the audience, it's like higher highs and like, or like sorry, lower highs and like higher lows basically, right? Where you kind of center somewhere in the middle because you don't have like the audience there. So I wonder if like what you're saying, Dean, is kind of also related to like my difference in experience too, right? Where it's like now it's the same thing, but like you don't actually see the people, so like you can't get psyched out. It's very different, so
until you meet them in person at Gen Con, and then all bets are off, and it's terrifying.
See, like we started streaming very shortly before Gen Con 2019, and so we weren't really like a while before that.
But we didn't really pick up any kind of steam until after Gen Con 2019.
And then 2020 happened, and so no Gen Con, obviously, or no physical Gen Con, not honestly, but like obviously.
Yeah.
So like I'm coping with the reality that next time there's a physical convention, that there are people there who will know me that I have never seen before in my life.
Oh, it's terrifying. Oh, I hate it. So, I mean, I love it, but it's also really scary.
Yeah.
Like one of those times, like one of those times I'm going to be there and somebody's going to be like, "Hey, John." And I'll be like, "What?" And I'm going to look right past them. Like,
Right.
I mean, it's so awesome to meet people in real life who love your content, but also it's terrifying when someone goes, "Hey, Rachel," and you're like, "Who are you?" And you're trying to run all the like screen names through your head of like, who could this person
what's your Discord handle? What's your
Yeah.
profile picture on Discord?
Right.
Yeah. Oh god.
Are you the mochi? Oh, you're okay. Like, yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's what I'm gonna do if we ever end up going back to Gen Con, is I'm gonna find you from the furthest distance that you can hear my voice, and I'm just gonna yell. So you have to figure out who said
Yeah,
it.
there you go.
I have a very good memory for voices, so I might recognize it. Like,
no, I'll bring my little microphone in my little box.
Perfect.
And
Yeah,
Oh,
just-
yes, good.
There you go.
my shitty children's microphone.
You'll be like, and I'll turn to see you, and I won't have seen you. I won't be able to because you'll be gone because you'll have just handbrake turned past the corner
There
already.
you go.
Like
yeah.
the wind.
conversation that is complete nonsense to anybody who wasn't present during
I'm sorry.
All I can say is if you have no idea what we're talking about, definitely do go back and watch the VOD of this one.
You want to watch me break down into tears?
In fairness, she was not alone.
No, we were all losing it. I was
Oh.
beat red, like.
Truly excellent.
I was liquefaction.
Yeah. Freeman was somehow able to keep completely stoic during that.
I was melting. I was melting.
Were you?
Melting.
I couldn't
Yeah.
tell because I had my
I-
eyes were
yeah,
full of
I was
laughing tears.
The moment that somebody shouts, "Hey, Resident Bard!" at a convention, I will actually die. Holy shit.
John will simply be deceased. He will just
Love it.
It'll just
There was
evaporate into the ether.
There was a thing that happened the other day where I was in a playtest group for a game, and one of the other people there was also a game creator, and like we both knew the guy who was running the playtest but didn't know each other, and like I said my screen name afterwards, and he's like, "Oh yeah, no, I've seen your it's the weirdest experience to be known by your Twitter handle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is it the
Real
thing that
weird.
Caitlin says all the time? The mortifying ordeal of being known.
Yeah.
That's
a great-
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I
John
want on my tombstone. Thus ends the mortifying ordeal of being known. That's all I
Yes.
want. That's it. That's
Oh,
it. Maybe an engraved
that's a-
meme at the very bottom. And then
I
that's
don't know. I think that might be a tattoo idea right
Yeah,
there somehow.
Perfect. Like truly, that is excellent.
Yeah.
Yes, with a little tombstone and a little line.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely just.
Oh,
Oh my gosh. No, we.
Gemini, you criminal. Thank you very much.
Wow.
By the way, for the
My
absolutely
goodness.
Not do
enormous
this to
cheer
us.
earlier. 10,000 biddies is amazing.
Oh my
And
God.
I am frankly just trying to cope with that.
Gemini.
So
Thank you. Seriously, that's amazing.
oh my goodness.
I wanted to say Gemini earlier said, you have been my saving grace through the pandemic. I love you all's content so much.
Like that, I teared. Tears.
We, and so the stream ends as it began, in tears.
yeah.
Just as oddly as it appeared, it vanishes.
Thank you, John Numa. I knew it wasn't like a
Ugh.
thing that I knew it was. Caitlin got it from somewhere. He said it's a quote from by author Tim Kreider in an essay he wrote for the New York Times. The full quote reads, "If we want the rewards of being loved, we have to submit to the mortifying ordeal of being known."
I want the fucking to be continued. Like that just
Yeah,
got my soul.
yeah, that's incredible.
Ugh.
Well, it is at the end of our time. Past the end of our time, but like that's a normal thing. We do that all the time. That's what we do. That's how we
Since
roll.
it's the
here.
end of the show, do you guys want the result of the mystery of the mug?
Yes, please. I would like to
Yes.
The tag is not in here. I was fooled.
know. Wait,
Well,
This
what?
whole time, it was
You've-
the illusion of the threat more than the threat itself,
Mhm,
guys.
mhm.
Did it
No, no.
dissolve or like
You've
what
been-
happened?
Oh, don't say that. I just drank so much ink.
You've been bamboozled. Like,
I've been hardcore bamboozled.
Oh my God.
I took every sip with trepidation and fear
Huh.
for no reason.
Maybe it's just
There's nothing in here.
maybe it's just hiding out on the corner of the
Oh my
side
God, I
of the
swear.
mug somehow. It's
Oh my God.
For anyone who wasn't illegally
Huh.
listening to the beginning of our conversation before we went live, I
Ah.
dropped my bag or my like little tag of my tea in here, and then I pulled out the string and the tag wasn't there. So we can all, I don't know, conclude what
the
happened.
tab was never there
Oh,
Oh,
to begin with.
there we go.
Maybe.
And thus ends our lesson for today.
oh
That's
man.
there's your
Well-
moral.
Mhm.
Um. Well.
So-
it-
Stop it.
all chaos all the time. I just-
And thus ends the story of this evening's Ramblemancy.
Ugh. Ew.
Well, it is well past. It's basically we're beyond the end of our stream time enough that this is when we normally actually end. So like we're there, we made it. This is the unofficial end time. But before we go, I did want to make mention of a pretty. I sincerely doubt that any of you are unaware of this right now, but I still want to talk about it because it's fucking cool. But like a pretty amazing thing that happened yesterday, which was the successful touchdown of Perseverance on Mars, which is incredible. Like that's so fucking cool. Like I
Mhm.
just barely caught the tail end of it. Like I caught like the 30 seconds before it touched down, and then I watched like the whole control room just go nuts. It was amazing.
Oh, that must
They
be
were
the
beside
most
themselves.
amazing
Yeah.
like place to be ever. Is in a
Truly.
control room.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That kind of moment.
And you could see everybody was just sort of like they're tense, but they're like cautious, like in their body language, they're like cautiously optimistic. And then
Mhm.
and then you hear the report that it has touchdown and has begun transmitting, and they all just let loose. It was incredible.
Yeah, it was
They're-
beautiful.
Like on the Perseverance rovers Twitter account, there are high definition color photos
Mhm.
of the surface of another planet.
That's wild. Like truly mind blowing.
I love it.
And to that end, I will also say that the episode of Infinite Horizon that went up today, I was searching around for a title, and any of you who have happened to have recognized the episode title, and also maybe looked at the episode description on YouTube, might notice something a little extra, which is a reference to a quote about aviation by a TV writer. It's a quote famously misattributed to Leonardo da Vinci, but is actually from a TV writer from a documentary series that he did in the 1960s. That basically is about once having touched the sky, always wanting to return. And thank you, John Numa. I appreciate you doing this because I was not about to go look it up myself, but thank you. And the quote is, "And once you have tasted flight, you will walk the earth with your eyes turned skyward, for there you have been, and there you would return." So I was casting around for an episode yesterday, or an episode title yesterday when I was naming it, and I was like, you know what? Honestly, this is perfect, just with the themes that took place in the episode, and but also as a reference to like the amazing thing that took place yesterday. So,
Perfect.
yeah, I wasn't really,
Actually,
I really have no point to make about that. It's just fucking cool, and
Yeah,
That is
no.
cool.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
I do actually have a raid suggestion for us.
Oh, do we?
We have never gotten to raid Annabelle K because she is never on this late, but her stream was pushed back today,
Oh,
so
hell
she is
yeah.
currently streaming art right now.
Let's do it.
Cool.
Let's raid Annabelle.
Nice.
Is she still on? She is still on. Perfect. Okay. So yeah, we're gonna raid Annabelle. Before we go, just some few quick announcements. I think we're gonna like keep our end of stream announcements relatively short. But you know what they are. You can support us here on Twitch. You can by hitting the subscribe button, which is extremely helpful. It honestly has helped us do so much stuff this year and last year, and just through Twitch alone. Like between Twitch and Patreon, like we've been able to do so much stuff we wouldn't have been able to otherwise. So thank you, everybody. And of course, if you're not already, do hop in the Discord if you're interested in what you've seen here, because it is a great way to stay apprised of everything that we are doing, get like the most up-to-date information, as well as coming and yelling at us about our crimes that we commit on our TTRPG shows, as well as keeping the conversations during Ramblemancy going. So do that, and thank you very much, everybody. Ray, please tell these fine people where they can find you.
Yeah, so you can find me. I run 2 different Twitch channels, as I mentioned. Twitch.tv/Resonym, RESONYM, is the channel that I run for the board game company that I work for. We're coming out with a Kickstarter soon, so it's a big way you can support that work that we're doing. And then I have a personal channel called twitch.tv/Raise Retros, where I stream retro games from my childhood every Sunday night. And both of those streams are 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Resonym is Tuesday, Thursday. Raise Retros is Sunday. And you can find me on Twitter at _Raybird_. Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's what I do. I just want to say thank you for having me, and your chat is lovely. You're all such good, thoughtful beings, and this has been so fun. fucking smiled ear to ear the whole time. So thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Thank you so much for coming. Like I said, we've been
Yeah.
wanting to have you on for
Oh
a
my God,
while
of course.
now, and I'm so glad that we finally were able to do it. And
Yay.
I'm glad
Yeah.
it turned into the chaos that it was, because that was
I-
Absolutely.
Bringeth the chaos wherever I go.
I would not have it any
Awesome.
other way.
Yeah.
Like
It's true.
I am the resident bard,
Good.
but also the resident chaos gremlin here.
Fantastic.
so,
Well, I really appreciate y'all bringing me on. This was just super fun to just
Yeah,
chat.
definitely.
So
we'll have to do it again sometime for sure.
yeah, absolutely. I'm around.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was nice to meet you.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. We're gonna go raid Annabelle. So please at least stick around and long enough to go and shower Annabelle with some Rule of Lord love.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much, everybody, for coming and hanging out with us. And we will see you at the beginning of the week, hopefully for In Too Deep. But again, we're trying to prioritize their safety and well-being, as many of them are in affected areas. So at least half of them are in affected areas. So, so yeah. But if not, we will see you the next time you decide to come roll with us. Good night and good zone, everyone.